There was a time when the boxing promoter was exactly what the name suggested. A promoter, someone who sold fights, built rivalries, and convinced the public that two men stepping into the ring actually mattered. But I think the role has changed. Now, is the modern promoter is the modern promoter really a lawyer with a promotional banner? I say this because increasingly, boxing isn't simply about who should fight whom. It's contracts, it's rematch clauses, broadcast agreements, mandatory positions, weight classes, exclusivity, and lawyers. Yes, lawyers. Now I understand. I understand why these things exist. Boxing involves competition and enormous amounts of money. Fighters need contracts, and fighters need protection, and they need a legal system. They need a legal system that's capable of holding promoters, managers, and broadcasters accountable. But here's the paradox. The law can protect boxing while simultaneously suffocating it. Think of this. Two fighters. Two fighters want to fight. The fans, they want the fight. Millions upon millions of pounds are available. And yet somehow the fight doesn't happen. Not because somebody is injured, not necessarily because somebody is scared, but because people disagree over the wording of a contract. And maybe, just maybe, this points towards something bigger than boxing. Because there is a difference. There is a difference between legality and morality. Something can be legally defensible without necessarily being morally right. And problems begin when people stop seeing the legal system as a system of accountability and they start seeing it as a game. Let me explain. They start seeing it as who can exploit the wording, who can minimize responsibility, who can create the strongest technical argument, who can find the loophole. And this is where I become cynical, because obviously there must be good lawyers and good solicitors, but I found in my limited experience, solicitors, they are like masters of manipulation, masters of minimization, masters of self-interest. In a sense, the responsibility, it gets reduced. The language, it gets manipulated. And sometimes you wonder whether the currency of truth actually matters. Isn't that ironic? Because when the players within a system learn how to manipulate the system, they can eventually undermine the very thing they're supposed to protect. Maybe some lawyers, maybe they enter the profession genuinely believing in justice. Maybe some promoters enter boxing genuinely loving the sport. But systems can change people, or perhaps more accurately, systems can reward certain behaviors. Protect your client, protect your company, protect your money, and ultimately protect yourself. And maybe corruption doesn't always begin with a corrupt person. Maybe corruption doesn't always begin with a corrupt mind. Sometimes it can begin with just an incentive. Boxing demonstrates this perfectly because underneath everything, boxing is incredibly simple. Two fighters, one ring, let's find out who's better. But surrounding that simplicity is this enormous machine of promoters, managers, broadcasters, and sanctioning organizations and lawyers. Everybody protecting their interests. And sometimes competition becomes the least powerful voice in the room. We need contracts, we need lawyers, and fighters absolutely need legal protection. But the mechanisms designed to protect boxing should never become more important than boxing itself. Because eventually the promoter stops asking, how do we make the biggest fight? And they start asking, how do we protect our position? And the fan is left waiting for a fight everybody apparently wants. Perhaps every system eventually faces the same danger. The rules created to protect its principles can become the very thing that destroys them.